Welcome back, boys and girls. Looking at our assignment today, we're going to read together the Physical and Chemical Changes handout. Looking at our first paragraph, everything in the universe is made up of matter. Matter is another word for atoms. All of the types of atoms that we know about are listed on the periodic table of elements. Often those atoms join together to form molecules, and these form different types of substances than atoms form on their own. Water, for example, is known as H2O. This means it has two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom bonded together to form each molecule of water. Hydrogen and oxygen on their own are both gases at room temperature, but when they form a water molecule, they now have totally different properties, and the water molecule is liquid at room temperature. So if you look here, guys, they're talking here about carbon dioxide. So this example shows the tile for carbon, the tile for oxygen, and then here's the atomic structure here, carbon and two oxygen, and then again, carbon and two oxygen, the molecule version of it. Going back to our reading, matter can be altered by forces of nature or man. When matter is changed, it undergoes what scientists call a physical change or a chemical change. Changes in the amount, position, or state, solid, liquid, or gas, of an object are called physical changes. These types of changes do not change the molecules or an atom arrangement of the particles that makes up the matter. Remember, guys, we said physical changes only affect the way something looks. It does not create something new. All right? Looking here, for example, think about the water molecule again. At room temperature, it is liquid. But if you take your cup of water and place it in the freezer, it becomes solid. All right? We're taking water and we're making ice. It is still H2O, it's still water. It's just solid H2O and not liquid anymore. This would be a physical change. All right, above here with the banana, the other type of change that matter can undergo is called chemical change. This is when the molecules of matter rearrange and form new molecules, giving the matter new properties. When chemical changes occur, it is not possible to get the original material back with the same properties it once had. All right, this again, we're getting something completely new, chemical change. Think of rotting pieces of fruit, for example. This cannot be made back into fresh pieces of fruit you once had. It has undergone a chemical change. Properties of matter include the density, the color, the mass, the volume, the length, the malleability, that again, whether we can bend it or not, the melting point, the hardness, and odor. Remember, we said some of the changes or evidence that we look for in a chemical change. That's what we're talking about. Water will always have the same density when at 70 degrees Fahrenheit. It will also always have the same volume and color. Going to the next page. These are the properties of water. Water always freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit and always boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. All types of matter have properties that remain the same unless altered by a chemical change. Let's take a look at some of the clues you can use to tell if a change in matter is a chemical or physical change. All right, we're looking for the evidence. Think about the piece of wood. Imagine taking an axe and chopping the wood into a smaller piece of wood. Is that a physical or chemical change? If you said physical, you are right. This didn't change the arrangement of the atoms within the molecules. It just split the molecules apart into smaller groups. All right, guys, what they're saying is we didn't create something new. It's still a log, only now we have two. But what if I took one of those pieces of wood and I lit it on fire? Okay, we're going to take one of those pieces of log and burn it. That would be a chemical change. Once the wood is burnt with fire, it cannot be changed back into wood. Remember, we now have ash. This is because a chemical reaction occurred. The molecules of the wood actually rearranged. Some of the molecules atoms become airborne and went up into the smoke, while other parts of the wood turned into carbon and are now blackened and dense. Chemical changes are irreversible, meaning they cannot be undone. Burning, cooking, rusting, and rotting are all chemical changes. If you see fire, smoke, gas, or a color change, you're most likely looking at a chemical change. Physical changes, however, are less permanent and are not actually changing the molecular structure of the material. Boiling, melting, freezing, and shredding are all physical changes. These are actions that can be undone and reversed. Shredding paper doesn't make it not paper anymore, it's simply smaller pieces. In contrast, burning paper cannot be reversed, and the ashes of the paper do not have the same properties or molecular structure as paper. The table here can help you decide if a change in matter is chemical or physical. All the traits from each column may not apply to the changes of that type. Alright, so we covered some of these in class. Let's take a look at some commonly found changes and decide if they're chemical or physical changes. The kitchen is a great place to start. Cooking involves food absorbing heat energy and the material changing to be what we know as cooked. Think about cooking an egg. After you've cooked the egg, can you change it back into a raw egg? Not likely. Cooking an egg is an example of a chemical change. Making a salad, however, may only consist of physical changes. Lettuce, cucumber, tomatoes, and avocado all chopped up and are ready to go. This is a physical change. Add the dressing and you have a salad. Another physical change there. As silly as it may be, I could separate all the salad ingredients again and they would all have the same properties as they always had, making this a physical change. Okay, you're going to use the questions on the next few pages to practice identifying physical and chemical changes. So on this page, you're going to write a P if the image or the picture shows a physical change. You're going to type in a C if the image shows a chemical change. You've got 5 here that you're going to work on this side and 5 on this side. The next one says describe the difference between chemical and physical changes. Make sure to include what happens to the atoms and molecules during each. All right, you have to tell me what are the differences between the two. What is the evidence of a chemical change? All right. For 2, write true or false after each statement. Read the statement, tell me, does it describe, is it correct? Is it true or false? Chemical changes can normally be reversed. Cutting an object is a physical change. Physical changes will release heat. Chemical changes occur when light is made. A phase change is considered a physical change. All right, phase meaning state of matter. And then you're going to use the table below to come up with 3 examples of physical and chemical changes. Do not use the examples from the text or the questions. All right, good luck.